Yoga is a Sanskrit word. It's based on a Sanskrit word, yog or yog, which means to yoke, like to union. Right? So
Mhm.
yoga actually means union. So what are we unioning? We're unioning individuality with totality. And we do that through a series of asana practices, which again, asana is a Sanskrit word that means seat. So there's chair pose,
Yep.
but then there's a whole lexicon of yoga poses that are also called asanas. So why is that? Like why is every single yoga pose called a seat? Because that practice, that asana practice is preparing your body to become a
Sit
seat
longer.
for meditation.
Yeah.
Right? And then Shivasana, asana, notice it's Shivasana means corpse pose. So you're actually practicing dying, which I know sounds scary, but it just means that you're transcending that individuality and again connecting to totality. And at Ziva, it's almost like we just fast track to Shavasana. So instead of having to do an hour and a half of yoga poses, we just sort of cut to the chase and it's like vroom, you drop into that sense of pure
Now,
being.
where'd you learn this? You went to India, and who'd you study with? Tell me.
So
That's
I studied first in New York City with a teacher who had come in from London, and that's who initiated me personally. And then it was so beautiful. I loved it so much that I was trying to find any teacher I could. I actually went on tour with a chorus line, and our second city was Los Angeles. And when I was there, I was seeking out meditation teachers in this same lineage, and I found someone in Venice. And I went to his house. I had a group meditation, and afterwards, I by a group meditation, which is me and him and his girlfriend. But
yeah. Okay.
anyway, I opened up my eyes afterwards, and I saw this photo or like a painting. I didn't know what it was, but it was like a bridge with a light at the end of it. And I said, "What is that?" And he said, "That's Rishikesh." And I was like, "What's a Rishikesh?" And he goes, "That's a town in India. You know, I'm going to retreat there later this year. Are you coming?" And I was like, "No." And I looked at the photo, and I looked back at him, and I said, yeah, I'm gonna go. So, cut to 6 months later, I take myself to India, 30th birthday present to myself. I get there, and every morning at sunrise, we would meditate on the banks of the Ganges.
Yeah.
And so, we had to cross this bridge. And the first morning, we're crossing the bridge, and the sun is rising on the other side of the bridge. And it's the exact same snapshot that I had seen in that painting. And I remember I saw it, and I stopped, and I started sobbing, crying. And I knew that the me in that moment had gone to the me in Los Angeles and was like, hey, come here. Like, we need you. Like, you need to teach this. And so, anyway, so when I went to India, I thought I was just going to deepen my own practice. But then it was there that I decided I wanted to teach. So I originally went to study the Upanishads, which
Uh-huh.
is a series of sacred poems where the theme is that there's only one thing and we're all it. And then from there, even though I just went for my own personal practice, I immediately started studying the Vedas, and which is an ancient body of knowledge from northern India. And then from there, nature made it very clear how she wanted to use me. She's like, "Hey, I know this acting thing has been fun, and I know you've been doing Broadway for 10 years, but like, we're gonna go ahead and point your attention other places."
Now, for those three, what tradition is it? Is Ziva a tradition, or is this a word you?
So Ziva is the name of my company. Ziva is a
Right.
Sanskrit word that
Right.
means bliss. It's also a Hebrew name that means one who is radiant or kind. So so I created Ziva and then developed like the trifecta of mindfulness, meditation, and manifesting after teaching about there's probably like 8,000 people at that point, and noticing that so many people were like falling off the wagon or too afraid to start. And so I just was like, this is a solvable problem. And that's how the Ziva technique was born. But the meditation portion of Ziva is based on something called Nishkam Karma Yoga, which means union attained by action hardly taken. Lazy meditation.
Beautiful. And all 3 years were under that tradition when you were in India, or did you study any other tradition?
So I studied for 3 years. So my teacher training was super intense. It was thousands of hours of apprenticing and transcribing books by hand in Sanskrit and helping thousands of people through the class. But I was not in India for 3 years. I started there. I did some in LA. I went back to southern India. I then studied with a lot of other traditions and lineages, but my teacher training, yes, was all under that umbrella. And then since graduating, I more as an intellectual exercise and just to sort of understand other practices, I've since studied Vipassana and more mindfulness and studied other spiritual teachers. But my time in India and for my teacher training was all in this. It was like a very deep well.